Every major airline on Earth wants to grow, expand the map, add destinations, chase new revenue. That's the playbook. So when the largest domestic carrier in the United States looks at the most lucrative international aviation market on the planet and says, "No thanks, something doesn't add up," Southwest Airlines carries more domestic passengers than any airline in America, more than 130 million in 2024 alone. It operates more than 800 aircraft. It once posted 47 consecutive years of profitability, a record unmatched in the US airline industry, before the pandemic interrupted the streak in 2020, and it has never once crossed an ocean, not the Atlantic, not the Pacific, not even close. That's not a limitation, that's a doctrine, and it might be the single most important strategic decision in modern airline history. To understand why Southwest doesn't fly to Europe, you have to understand the world Southwest was born into, and more importantly, the world it refused to join. Rewind to 1971. American aviation is a country club. Pan Am, TWA, Eastern, Braniff. These carriers run the show. They operate hub and spoke networks. They funnel passengers through massive central airports. They fly multiple aircraft types. They charge whatever they want, and most of them are bleeding money doing it. The hub and spoke model looks elegant on a route map. In practice, it's a nightmare of complexity. You need connecting gates. You need timed banks of arrivals and departures. You need ground crews at hub airports working around the clock. You need interline baggage agreements. You need reservation systems that talk to each other. Every added layer of complexity adds cost, and cost is what kills airlines. Into this world steps Herb Kelleher, a lawyer from New Jersey who co-founded an airline in Texas with one of the most radical ideas in commercial aviation. What if you just flew people from one city to another city? No hubs, no connections, no nonsense. Southwest Airlines launched with 4 Boeing 737s flying between Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. That's it. 4 planes, 3 cities, 1 aircraft type. The entire model fit on a napkin, and that napkin would become the most copied business strategy in aviation history. But here's what most people miss about the napkin. It wasn't just a route map, it was a philosophical boundary. Everything Southwest did from that moment forward was designed around a single question: does this make us simpler or more complex? If the answer was more complex, the answer was no. And nothing on Earth is more complex than flying across an ocean. Let's talk about the fleet. Southwest operates the Boeing 737. Every single aircraft, every variant, 737-700, 737-800, 737 MAX 8. More than 800 airplanes as of early 2025, all 737s. One of the largest single-type fleets of any airline on Earth. Think about what that means operationally. Every pilot can fly every plane. Every mechanic knows every system. Every gate can handle every departure. Spare parts inventory is one catalog, not 12. Training costs are a fraction of what legacy carriers spend. Crew scheduling is a math problem with one variable, not 50. This uniformity isn't a quirk. It's the engine of Southwest's entire cost advantage. And it's the single biggest reason Europe will never appear on a Southwest boarding pass. The 737 MAX 8 has a maximum range of roughly 3,500 to 3,800 nautical miles. To put that into perspective, London Heathrow is approximately 3,450 nautical miles from New York. On paper, that looks tight, but possible. In reality, it's a fantasy. Load up 175 passengers with bags. Add fuel reserves mandated by regulation. Factor in winter headwinds that can blow at 150 knots across the North Atlantic. That 737 isn't making it to London. It's not even close. And that's from New York. Southwest's major bases are Dallas, Denver, Phoenix, Chicago, Midway, Baltimore. From Dallas Love Field to London Heathrow is over 4,600 nautical miles. You could strap a 737 to a rocket and it still wouldn't get there with passengers aboard. To fly transatlantic, Southwest would need wide-body aircraft, Boeing 787s, Airbus A330s, maybe the A321XLR for limited routes, Any of those options would detonate the single fleet model that has saved Southwest billions over 5 decades. You don't add a second aircraft type to an airline like Southwest. You add a second airline, new pilot training programs, new mechanic certifications, new spare parts warehouses, new maintenance hangars, new ground equipment, new manuals, new simulators. Every single system that currently runs on the assumption of one aircraft type gets duplicated. The cost would be staggering, and the complexity would be irreversible. But the fleet problem is just the beginning. Let's talk about how Southwest actually moves people. Southwest pioneered point-to-point flying, no hubs, no connecting banks, Dallas to Tampa, Denver to Oakland, Phoenix to Nashville. Direct, simple, fast. The airplane lands, turns around in 25 to 35 minutes and goes somewhere else. In the early days, Southwest was famous for the 10-minute turn. Ground crews would sprint. Flight attendants would clean cabins mid-deplaning. The goal was maximum aircraft utilization. Every minute on the ground was a minute not making money. Transatlantic flying is the exact opposite. Legacy carriers like Delta, United, and American operate massive hub and spoke networks to make their European routes work. They funnel passengers from dozens of small and mid-sized cities into gateway hubs, JFK Newark, Atlanta, Chicago O'Hare. Then they load those passengers onto wide-body aircraft and send them to London, Paris, Frankfurt, and Amsterdam. That funnel is essential because a single route from, say, Atlanta to London requires 300 seats to be filled on a Boeing 777 or 787. No single city pair generates that much origin and destination traffic every day. You need the spoke cities feeding the hub. You need the connecting passengers. Southwest has no hubs, no spokes, no feeder traffic, no alliance partnerships feeding passengers into its network from foreign carriers, no code-share agreements with Lufthansa or British Airways, no interline baggage deals. The entire infrastructure that makes transatlantic flying economically viable simply doesn't exist at Southwest. Building it would take years. It would cost hundreds of millions before a single revenue flight crossed the water. Then there's the product itself. Southwest is famous for open seating, no assigned seats. Passengers board in groups and sit wherever they like. No first class, no business class, no premium lounges, no lie flat beds, no 3-course meals at 40,000 feet. Everyone gets the same seat. Everyone pays a similar fare. It's the most egalitarian airline in the sky. That philosophy is beautiful for domestic travel. It's a death sentence for transatlantic economics. Here's why. On a typical transatlantic flight, business class and first class passengers generate between 30 and 50% of total revenue, despite occupying maybe 15 to 20% of the seats. A single business class ticket from New York to London can run $3,000 to $10,000. Economy tickets on the same flight might be $400 to $800. The math is brutal. Without premium cabins, transatlantic routes don't generate enough revenue per seat to cover the astronomical cost of operating a wide-body airplane across an ocean. Southwest would need to introduce business class, lie-flat seats, premium dining, lounge access, maybe even a first-class cabin. That's not a product extension, that's a brand identity crisis. Southwest's entire marketing promise for 53 years has been simplicity and equality. You start selling $10,000 lie-flat suites to London, and you're not Southwest anymore. You're a different airline wearing Southwest's logo. But let's say Southwest ignored all of that. Let's say they bought the wide bodies, built the hubs, created the premium cabins, joined an alliance, hired the international crews. There's still a mountain of operational complexity that most people never think about. Flying to Europe requires ETOPS certification, extended range twin engine operational performance standards. That means specific crew training for overwater operations, diversion airport planning across the North Atlantic, enhanced maintenance protocols. Southwest has never done any of this at scale. Then there's regulatory compliance. European aviation falls under EASA, not the FAA. Different certification standards, different operational rules, different safety mandates, ground handling contracts at European airports, foreign currency management across multiple countries, multilingual crew requirements, immigration and customs processing capabilities. And then there are airport slots. Getting into a major European airport isn't like pulling up to a gate in Phoenix. London Heathrow is the most slot-constrained airport on the planet. A single slot pair at Heathrow has reportedly sold for as much as $75 million. Frankfurt, Paris, Charles de Gaulle, Amsterdam Schiphol, all brutally constrained. Southwest has zero experience navigating this world, zero relationships, zero infrastructure. Let's talk numbers. Building transatlantic operational capability from scratch would cost hundreds of millions. Wide-body aircraft cost $250 to $350 million each. You'd need at least 10 to 15 to launch a credible transatlantic network. That's 3 to 5 billion in aircraft alone. Add training, add facilities, add technology systems, add European ground operations. You're looking at a multi-billion-dollar bet with no guarantee of return. And the market you'd be entering is one of the most brutally competitive in global aviation. American, Delta, and United each operate dozens of daily transatlantic flights with decades of experience, established networks, and deeply loyal premium customers. European carriers like British Airways, Lufthansa, and Air France (KLM) have been flying the Atlantic since the propeller era. They know every airport manager by first name. They have alliances that feed traffic from hundreds of cities. But here's the most telling evidence: low-cost carriers have tried to crack the transatlantic market. They've tried hard, and they've mostly been destroyed. Norwegian Air went all in during the 2010s, bought Boeing 787 Dreamliners, launched aggressive low-fare routes between secondary European cities and the American East Coast, London Gatwick to Fort Lauderdale, Barcelona to Oakland. The fares were spectacular, the losses were catastrophic. Norwegian effectively went bankrupt, entering formal restructuring proceedings. They eventually abandoned long-haul flying entirely and retreated to short-haul European routes. Their 787s were sold off or returned to lessors. WOW Air, the Icelandic low-cost carrier, same playbook, ultra-low fares, transatlantic service through Reykjavik. They went bankrupt in 2019, completely. Aircraft repossessed on the tarmac, passengers stranded mid-journey. Even Iceland Air, which has the geographic advantage of sitting in the middle of the Atlantic, struggles with consistent profitability on its transatlantic network. The pattern is clear. Low-cost long-haul flying across the Atlantic is one of the hardest business models in aviation. Southwest's leadership has watched these failures carefully. They've learned without spending a dime. Now, some people point to the Hawaii expansion as evidence that Southwest could eventually push further, and it's true. Southwest's launch of Hawaii service in 2019 was the biggest network extension in the airline's history. It required ETOP certification for the 737, years of preparation, new crew training, regulatory hurdles. But Hawaii is still domestic. It's still within the FAA framework. It's still the 737. It's still the same product, same brand, same operational model stretched to its geographic limit. Hawaii proved Southwest could push boundaries within its philosophy. It also proved how much effort even a moderate range extension demands. Europe is a different universe, and right now, Southwest has bigger problems to solve at home. The December 2022 operational meltdown exposed deep structural weaknesses. A winter storm cascaded into nearly 17,000 cancelled flights. Outdated crew scheduling technology collapsed under pressure. Passengers were stranded for days. The Department of Transportation reached a $140 million settlement, including a record $35 million civil penalty, the largest ever against a U.S. airline. Elliott Investment Management took a $1.9 billion stake in 2024 and pushed for sweeping changes. New leadership, assigned seating for the first time in company history, extra legroom sections, red-eye flights. These are the most significant product changes Southwest has ever made, and every one of them is aimed at strengthening the domestic business, not chasing international expansion. Southwest is spending its strategic energy and its capital on fixing the foundation, not building a new house across the ocean. Could it ever happen? Aviation is a business where never is a dangerous word. The Airbus A321XLR can fly roughly 4,700 nautical miles. That's enough to reach parts of Western Europe from the US East Coast. If Southwest ever acquired A321XLRs, transatlantic service becomes physically possible. But Southwest has never operated an Airbus aircraft. Introducing a second manufacturer would undermine the single fleet advantage even more dramatically than adding a second Boeing type. The cultural resistance alone would be enormous. The more realistic path would be partnerships, code shares with European carriers, interline agreements, but even that would require Southwest to abandon its fiercely independent, no-alliance philosophy. The airline that built its identity on doing everything differently would have to start doing things the way everyone else does. For now, Southwest's strategy remains what it has been since 1971. Dominate the US domestic market, keep costs low, fly one airplane, turn it fast, and let other airlines deal with the complexity, the risk, and the brutal economics of crossing oceans. 800 airplanes, 137 million passengers, 53 years of flying, and not a single mile over the Atlantic. That's not a failure of ambition. That's discipline so rare in aviation it might be the most impressive thing Southwest has ever engineered.